everyone. Thanks for tuning back in once again to the Queen Ahmadiyyah Shakur TV show. I'm your host, Queen Ahmadiyyah Shakur. So as you're coming in, please feel free to go ahead and subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so already. Be sure to click the notification bell and click the word all so that you're notified each time the Queen Goddess goes live. Okay, so listen to this. Now, you all remember back in 2020 when all the protests and all that stuff was going on about George Floyd and Breonna Taylor and all that, and Ahmaud Arbery. Well, there were several Atlanta police officers who were, in fact, they were facing charges because of how they treated two Black college students, if you recall. The students were sitting in their car in traffic, and, traffic was at a halt. And so the police came over, remember, smashed out the window, snatched them out of the car, tased them, and all of that. For little to no reason, as far as I was concerned. Now, several Atlanta police officers are no longer facing charges after being arrested for pulling two students, college students, out of the car in the summer of 2020. Body camera video showed the officers pulling the students from the car during a protest in downtown Atlanta over the killing of George Floyd. Now, Channel 2 investigative reporter Mark Wynn says he spoke exclusively with the special prosecutor who decided to clear those officers of any wrongdoing. Isn't that something? Okay, Special Prosecutor Samir Patel said the encounter near Centennial Olympic Park led to charges against 6 officers, and some were felonies. One officer was only charged with a misdemeanor. All were obtained by the office of the then Fulton County District Attorney Paul Howard through a judge. And so they got rid of him, didn't they? Now we know why. But Howard's successor, Fannie Willis, opted out of the case for a conflict, and the Attorney General appointed Patel. They say this decision may upset quite a few people, but I cannot let that come into my mind, and I could not let that come into my mind when I made this determination. The right thing in applying the law and the facts to decline prosecuting in this matter. Patel said his main job as district attorney, or is district attorney for Bartow and Gordon counties. But last year, he assumed the job of special prosecutor to determine whether 6 Atlanta police officers used their abilities and did their job or broke the law on May the 30th of 2020 at the chaotic epicenter of protest and more in downtown Atlanta in their encounter with college students Messiah Young and Tanya Pilgrim. Now, he determined criminal charges related to the incident against the APD officers, Ivory Streeter, Lonnie Hood, Mark Gardner, Roland Cloud, Willie Sauls, and Armand Jones must be dismissed, saying that these officers had no intent to violate any criminal statute. In the beginning of August, I asked the GBI to conduct an investigation, which was increasingly difficult for them because I was asking them to investigate something that happened over a year before, and they did an amazing job. Patel said the encounter occurred on the first night of a 9 p.m. curfew set by then Atlanta Mayor Keisha Lance Bottoms in an apparent effort to distinguish those peacefully protesting the murder of George Floyd from others wanting to wreak havoc. He cited civil service testimony from now former Atlanta Police Chief Erica Shields. And let's not forget, Erica Shields is now the police chief in Louisville, Kentucky, okay, over the Louisville Metropolitan Police Department. Patel said that Young, who was at the wheel of the car, stopped downtown about 44 minutes after curfew. Initially, Messiah Young was attempting to video the assault or the arrest of a pedestrian, possibly a friend nearby. So they say Patel said body cam video shows 3 encounters between APD officers and the car in a matter of minutes, where initially officers could have arrested the pair for the curfew violation, but they just wanted them to move on and not impede traffic. They say officers made repeated attempts to obtain compliance. They refused, and these officers used the force that they deemed appropriate, necessary, and reasonable. Patel said that after the first encounter, Young moved the car a short distance. In the second, he accelerated with an officer leaning into his vehicle. In the third, Young once opened a window, and the once open driver's door was locked. They say, was your decision a closer call when it came to what happened to Tanya Pilgrim? That's what Wynn asked Patel. He says it was. Patel said Pilgrim, who had complied with an officer's direction in the first stop to get back in the car, began to comply in the third by sticking her leg out, but then pulled it back and was tased. Then an officer smashed the window by Young, and he too was tased. Patel said neither Young nor Pilgrim are charged, and the officers should not be either. Is that right? He says it became abundantly clear based on the case law that these officers acted within their lawful scope and their actions were not criminal, he said. Well, anyway, honey, I'm just going to go to the footage of the report. Everyone get those likes up. Please like and share. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so already. Also, I'm going to play the victims and what they had to say. We'll play the victims first. I mean, I'm not surprised that they didn't, press the charges. I'm not surprised at all. This is often what happens when the cops act egregiously and escalate things rather than de-escalate them as it pertains to Black people. I mean, we see it all too often.
Atlanta's mayor and police department are now defendants named in a lawsuit filed by 2 local college students. It's tied to this incident in downtown Atlanta during last summer's protests over police violence. The students were tasered and pulled from their vehicle. Well, Channel 2's Steve Gelbach is live with what the students say they want. Steve.
They say they're still stuck, David. They can't move on, and they really still have nightmares about what happened out here on the street just a block from Centennial Olympic Park. This lawsuit now filed in civil court for the U.S. District here. It names the city of Atlanta. The mayor also names 9 Atlanta police officers. During a news conference to announce their lawsuit, attorneys played viral video and police body camera footage from last May 30th they call direct proof. Then Spelman and Morehouse students Tanaya Pilgrim and Messiah Young say watching it is still triggering. He had to turn away as it was played.
Living through this has been such a horrifying experience, and like the anxiety that night brings me every day, the nightmares that I still had to experience almost every single night. It's like life took a total turn.
Every day I'm reminded of something from that night.
We're here because the city has been unwilling to make this right.
Their attorneys say the city, mayor, and each individual officer is responsible for actions that could have ended much worse.
He screams he's got a gun multiple times, which could have easily led to every officer out there starting to shoot.
No officer intervened that night. In fact, they all became part of this maniacal sort of feeding frenzy against these 2 young people.
Probably the most confused I've ever been. I still am. There's no reason that the events that took place that night should have transpired how they did. It makes no sense at all.
I did reach out to the city, also Mayor Keisha Lance Bottom's office, as well as Atlanta Police Department. And this afternoon, the city did get back to me. A spokesperson said they have not been served with this lawsuit yet, and they cannot comment on pending litigation. Live in downtown Atlanta, Steve Gelbach, Channel 2 Action News.
Atlanta's mayor and police department are now defendants.
Clearly nefarious. Clearly nefarious. Hold on, let's go to the second report.
You may remember that body camera video, and you can see the officers pulling the students from a car. That was during a protest over the killing of George Floyd. Channel 2 investigative reporter Mark Winnie has an exclusive interview with the special prosecutor who decided to clear those officers of any wrongdoing. And Mark, you also talked with the lawyer who said he knows how difficult it is to have law enforcement held accountable.
As Special Prosecutor Samir Patel says an encounter near Centennial Olympic Park led to charges against 6 officers, some felonies, 1 officer only charged with a misdemeanor, all obtained by the office of then Fulton County District Attorney Paul Howard through a judge, but Howard's successor, Fonnie Willis, opted out of the case for a conflict, and the Attorney General appointed Patel.
This decision may upset quite a few people, but I cannot let that come into my mind when I make this determination. the right thing in applying the law and the facts is to decline prosecuting in this matter.
Samir Patel says his main job is district attorney for Bartow and Gordon counties, but last year he assumed the job of special prosecutor to determine whether 6 Atlanta police officers just did their jobs or broke the law May 30th, 2020 at the chaotic epicenter of protests and more. In downtown Atlanta, in their encounter with college students Messiah Young,
It's a blessing that I'm alive.
and Tanaya Pilgrim,
We felt like we were going to die in that car.
and that he's determined criminal charges related to the incident against APD officers Ivory Streeter, Lonnie Hood, Mark Gardner, Roland Claude, Willie Sauls, and Armand Jones must be dismissed.
That these officers had no intent to violate any criminal statute. In the beginning of August, I asked the GBI to conduct an investigation, which was increasingly difficult for them because I was asking them to investigate something that happened over a year before. And they did an amazing job.
Prosecutor Patel says the encounter occurred in the first night of a 9 p.m. curfew set by then Atlanta Mayor Keisha Lance Bottoms in an apparent effort to distinguish those peacefully protesting the murder of George Floyd from others wanting to wreak havoc. He cited civil service testimony from now former APD Chief Erica Shields, who we found on YouTube.
It was a powder keg. We were sitting on a powder keg.
These officers were ordered to detain individuals in violation of the curfew.
The DA says Young, who was at the wheel of a car police stopped downtown about 44 minutes after the curfew, and Ms. Pilgrim maintained they were unaware of the curfew.
Initially, Messiah Young was attempting to video the arrest of a pedestrian, possibly a friend, nearby.
That is correct.
Patel says body cam video shows 3 encounters between APD officers and the car in a matter of minutes that initially, though officers could have arrested the pair for the curfew violation, they just wanted them to move on and not impede traffic.
Officers made repeated attempts to obtain compliance. They refused, and these officers used a force they deemed necessary and reasonable.
The DA says after the first encounter, Young moved the car a short distance. That in the second, he accelerated with an officer leaning into his vehicle. And that in the third, Young's once open window was up and the once open driver's door was locked.
Was your decision a closer call when it came to what happened to Tanaya Pilgrim?
It was.
Patel says Ms. Pilgrim, who had complied with an officer's direction in the first stop to get back in the car, began to comply in the third by sticking her leg out, but then pulled it back in and was tased. Then an officer smashed the window by Young, and he was tased too. Patel says neither Young nor Ms. Pilgrim are charged, and the officers should not be either.
It became abundantly clear, based upon the case law, that these officers acted within their lawful scope, and their actions were not criminal.
Now, his attorney, Mawuli Davis, says Messiah Young suffered a fractured arm and received about 20 stitches. He says an unknown officer punched Young several times in the back at a location away from the scene. Davis and Justin Miller, a lawyer for Tanaya Pilgrim, say people are frustrated and angered by the decision that what happened to these college students should not have happened, and that many African Americans know the notion that Georgia is moving forward concerning police accountability is a myth. Reporting live in downtown Atlanta, Mark Winnie, Channel 2 Action News.
And we have more reaction for you. Just minutes ago, Mark spoke via Zoom to one of Tanaya Pilgrim's attorneys.
The students have been waiting 2 years to find out what was going to happen with this case. I know it's been shuffled from one office to another office, but for the students, they've been living with this same incident for the last 2 years. And so it's added a lot of anxiety to the problems that they're already dealing with as a result of this.
You disagree with the decision?
We 100% disagree with the decision. Anyone who's seen the video can understand why we would disagree with the decision.
And moving forward, a news conference expected tomorrow on this. You can count on Channel 2 to be there and bring you any new developments.
Well, I'm going to tell you like this. Time really flies because it doesn't even seem like that was 2 years ago. But also, you can see clearly how traumatized the 2 college students still are to this day. That was also unnecessary as far as I'm concerned. And pay attention, honey, because as I told you, doesn't matter what job you have, the number of accolades, what title or position or any of those things, you'll be treated the same as anyone else who wears the same skin that you're in. And that's just how it goes. That's why I don't see how some Black people are so perplexed when these things occur. At the end of the day, most of those officers who engaged in that nefarious act, right, look like them. They look just like them. So please pay attention, honey, because it does not matter, does it? When they say a few bad apples, well, more likely than not, it's a whole tree of bad apples and just a few good ones. That's just my opinion. Everyone, please like and share. Drop me a comment to let me know what you think about this. Do you think the officers should have been charged, or do you think that, like Mr. Patel said, they weren't charged, the students, that is, the college students weren't charged, and so the officers shouldn't be either? I'm just curious to see what you guys think. With that all being said, please like and share, subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so already, and I will talk to you all again soon.